You don't know how old you actually are. Today, I'm going to show you how to test your biological age from the comfort of your own home for $0. I actually started off immobile and I spent the first 5 years of my life not being able to walk and around 18 years in active physiotherapy. What is biological age? And here we have a breakdown of what contributes to biological age. Epigenetics, so your genetics, your telomere length, your blood biomarkers, your hormone profile, your oxidative stress, your VO2 max. These are all great data points and great metrics, but ultimately they're mere hint in the right direction in regards to what is biological age. We can die at any point, and solely focusing on biological age and increasing that, just like how Brian Johnson is not a realistic approach towards health. We have to look outside the data set of just VO2 max, resting heart rate, and HRV. For example, this is my Garmin. It tracks all my workouts, my sleep scores. I have it on my wrist at all times besides when it's charging. And here we can actually see my biological age. So if we go down to fitness age, boom, I'm currently 24, but it has me estimated at a fitness age of 18. Not the same thing as biological age, but it is a step in the right direction towards estimating things pertaining to what ChatGPT said in regards to VO2 max, resting heart rate, HRV, and body composition, etc. Now, the reason why this matters is because this is one of the most powerful predictors for health span and lifespan. The key word here is not health span or lifespan, but it's actually predictors. And the entire premise is that if you're lowering your biological age, you're in turn lowering your risk of chronic diseases, enhanced performance, and increased vitality. So that makes sense. Now, this is where things start to get tricky outside of the data set of the Optimability ecosystem, the things that we test for with people. We can test your full blood panel, your DNA, and your microbiome analysis. Mobility and fitness are great, lifestyle tracking. These are all really cool and great things, but realistically speaking, as of right now, there is no clear way to track all the problems going in your body. You can have a tight back, for example, or you could be wearing the wrong footwear, or you could be mouth breathing and you might even have a clogged artery and no one would ever know. And that's why currently, as sound as biological age is and as cool as it makes us feel and sound and all these gizmos, I take my fitness age with a grain of salt because I know that this is solely based on some key metrics that it's using. Heck, it's not even taking into account the fact that my right foot has been cut up and I still don't know the implications of what's going to happen when I'm 50, 60, and 70 because there are a couple tests like the sit to stand test that I personally can't do because of my limitations. For example, here's my business partner Martin doing the sit to stand test. Because of my previous conditions, I can't do that test. So in theory, I'm 30% less likely to live longer. Biological age also doesn't take into account a lot of other factors. What if you get a chronic disease or an illness that you can't treat? It's simply giving us false hope and false predictors to think that we're going to live longer than expected. Death is inevitable, and that's just a part of life. And what's more important than to focus on biological age is how can we save more time with all of the inputs required that we have to do to maintain a higher biological age, as opposed to micromanaging all of our little tidbits and nidbits and hoping and trying to question beg that we're going to live longer. So I've gone ahead and asked ChatGPT 3 really specific and important questions to take into account when it comes down to biological age. So immediately, how is biological age impacting your work performance? If your biological age exceeds your chronological age, so this is in relativity to time, so relative to time, it shows up in subtle but costly ways across the following dimensions. Your mental performance is lower, your energy and stamina, your recovery and adaptability. All of these things in reality sounds like, these are just aspects of getting older. But realistically speaking, brain fog, slow recall, decision fatigue, shorter attention span, these can actually all be traced to poor mitochondrial health, proper cortisol balances, emotional misregulation due to abusing dopamine receptors, inability to handle high stakes or stress due to not working out properly. And it's becoming more and more evident and clear that if your biological age is higher than a chronological age, you're not living the best life possible. The second part of the prompt, what can you do to lower biological age? It is really simple. You have to optimize your micronutrient status. So doing a full blood panel will give you the key insights that you need to better understand what's lacking in regards to the small puzzle piece that blood work is providing you with. So if your vitamin D is low, your magnesium, or if your omega-3s are out of balance, you can immediately supplement and start feeling a lot better just based on your blood work. Doing a DNA test can be super insightful with mitochondrial renewal. So polyphenols, eating the right foods. There's olive oil in here as well. Again, not rooted in science, but doing a DNA methylation test and better understanding how your DNA is replicating and what your strengths and advantages are is a terrific lever to help your cellular nutrition optimize. You can restore your circadian rhythm so you can sleep better. So aligning yourself with your sleep chronotype and knowing what time to go to bed at and to rise at depending on your genetics and what you respond best with. Precision movement and stress cycling. This is really important. So obviously just lifting weights and incorporating zone 2 cardio, the best form of cardio, and regular parasympathetic activation, cold plunges, breathwork, sauna. So this is all great. And honestly, it's giving us a ton of action items, and ultimately doing all of this stuff is super time involving, and it honestly remains pretty unclear. Like minimum 90 minutes of outdoor light before 10 a.m. What if I live in a really cold place? Or deep sleep? What if I'm not able to get deep sleep right now? Like what direction do I move in regards to that? It still is pretty unclear in regards to what we should be doing. I like the targeted supplementation prompt response. I think that's really, really, really smart. And that's what we do at Optimability for our clients, because that's obviously the only way to custom calibrate your biology and your body based on its needs. And finally, the last question we asked it was, what considerations remain outside of this equation? Your psycho-emotional state, unresolved trauma, identity stress aren't really related to your biological age. There's some people that just die of stress. It's a natural phenomenon and it's not measurable. Some people take their own lives even if they've worked out their whole lives, and that's not something that biological age takes into account. Environmental toxins and EMFs, so heavy metals, microplastics, mold exposure, these are all things that are not tracked with biological age and are really important. You might have mold in your walls and you'll never know, even though it's killing you slowly. Soul alignment, mission, community, daily flow, this is just values, so aligning yourself with your values. Genetic bias, so some people with perfect biological markers will still experience issues even if their gene is not supporting well. So some next action items it gave us are just do some testing, which is great. So these are just some of the considerations to keep note of when it comes down to if you're hearing biological age thrown around a lot, or if you're curious what that means. This prompt summary gives you a good in-depth overview of some of its limitations. Now back to Garmin, I'm going to show you how to measure your biological age as easy as possible. This is the entire premise of the video, and it's going to involve some sort of an investment, that is getting a watch. This thing and this watch has been the easiest way for me to keep track of my metrics. Biological age is just the cherry on top. And ultimately, because this is using different types of measurements from my resting heart rate, as you can see here, my training minutes, and how many days I'm training, as well as I have the Garmin scale right behind me that's also tracking my weight. Here, let me just show you. It's able to take a really, really, really good standpoint approach holistically from a training perspective, how I'm stacking up in regards to my body fat percentages, my weight, and then there's also sleep scores in here too. It takes that into account with sleep. I had a really bad sleep that night, but now I'm back in the 80s, average sleep score 82, not bad. And it's just taking into account a lot of things at once. And ultimately, this is going to be the closest accurate representation of your biological age in regards to how are you going to sit down and collect data as efficiently as possible. You're not going to Excel sheet it all. You're not going to write down all the workouts that you do. You're not going to track your HRV day over day. So a fitness tracker is an investment in the regard of you removing your mental energy or doing a bullshit test where someone tells you, hold your breath for 15 seconds. That will determine your biological age. Or do a sit to stand test. No. Do and get a Garmin or a fitness tracking wearable. We found these to be the most accurate in regards to training specific workouts. Boom, now I'm in my training peaks. I'm tapering for a marathon in 13 days, and this run will actually show up on my watch and it'll yell at me to stay in the zones based on what is it? I have 4 ramp up steps here, and after the kilometer is done, the Garmin will just tell me, hey, it's time for the next step. So that removes a lot of my decision fatigue. And that's the biggest thing with biological age and a lot of these things is you want to remove your decision fatigue. So ultimately, when I wasn't training, when I was traveling Europe, it went up to a fitness age of 22, and then it quickly went down the moment I started marathon training. Did that all automatically. I didn't even have to think about it, and it didn't really take up my mental energy. And then in regards to some free options, if you're not ready to get a Garmin yet, or if you're not the type of person that wears watches, we have some other options right here. So we have a cognitive sharpness test. Say the months of the year backwards as fast as you can, then counting backward from 100 by sevens. What you're looking for is pauses, prefrontal slowdown. So this could be related to lack of sleep, high cortisol, inflammation, etc. We have a sit to stand test. So SRT, already chatted with you about that in regards to sitting down and standing back up. We have some basic resting heart rate and HRV indicators. One super quick tip with HRV specifically is you want to see your baseline go up. If there's people that have a 200 HRV or a 150 and you're in the 50s or 60s, it doesn't mean you're chronically unhealthy. It just means that you have a different baseline, and that's totally normal. And what Chad is saying is if our resting heart rate is under 75, you definitely do want your resting heart rate to be under 75. Let's take a look at mine. I believe mine is around the low 50s right now. So we have a 7-day average resting of 55 BPM. But at the same time, I'm also currently running 35 to 40K a week, training for my marathon. So my resting heart rate is naturally going to be higher as the body is healing, etc. And then if we go back to heart rate, we'll also see on a longer span, the resting heart rate average of 54. So you do want to keep that down with an average high of 132. And then we also have resting heart rate. Less than 60 is typically stronger cardiovascular health. Again, genetics do play a role here. You can do a wall sit test and see how long you can sit on the wall. If you can't stay on the wall for more than 30 seconds, it's a big problem. We have a breath test hold. You can hold it for more than 60 seconds. It means you have elite cellular oxygen handling. I guess you have a gait speed and balance tests. Walk 10 meters and time yourself. Now, these are all borderline assumptive estimations to track your biological age. The truth is that biological age will become a reality eventually, but currently there isn't a live way for us to test this. And doing these tests is not really an accurate representation. What is an accurate representation is kind of what we do at Optimability, where we gather all this data, we gather blood work, genetics, DEXA scan, and we put it all in one place so that it can talk. And once it talks, we actually are able to identify clear strategies and clear ways the body is communicating. So if here we have all of the blood work all in one place, and I filtered it by what's too high or too low for one of our clients, and then I just use this data in an Excel sheet as well as a trained chatbot to identify what it means when it's too high, what it means if it's too low. There it is. So for example, if uric acid is too low, reduced antioxidant capacity, super simple. That way the computer is able to understand and create new relations at scale. And then we also have gut as well. Boom. Gut status is not in range. So now we have all of the markers associated within the gut. And this is all parsed from a PDF. So I parse this in there, and then we're able to understand what's going on internally, and we're actually linking up new connections for the way the body is talking. So that's really cool. We have DEXA scan, and then we have the mobility assessment that I showed you with the sit to stand, for example, supplements and DNA as well. So having all of this in one place makes it really easy to get a full picture view of what's going on. And we also handle the programming as well as the installation of a personal chef and cleaner that implements all this for our clients seamlessly. So that way they don't need to think about any of it, because it is a lot of data. And ultimately, they just don't have time to handle all this. The body is a really complicated thing, and we have to stay on top of it with training. We have to stay on top of it with nutrition, with mobility, with sleep. And ultimately, that's really where we come in as an all-in-one solution that handles all the complexity for people that are looking to live at their best and decrease their biological age the most. Now, if you are interested in learning more about the process, we have a really in-depth team with our main coach, Jameson Pluis, one of the top Ironman in Canada, currently doing his doctorate. He has an 828 full Ironman, pretty crazy. Me, myself, I've told you about my story with my immobility. I also do natural bodybuilding, cycling, and I'm training for a marathon right now. And I also have a 140 half marathon too. And then my business partner climbed Mount Elevation Everest in a day, 4 marathons in a month, etc. And this team is what supervises all that programming and all of the cool stuff on the background. And like I said, everything that we do is pertaining around gathering the data, installing an in-house team, and then having a doctor and a geneticist overview it. And some of our clients have seen a ton of success from creating and having an ecosystem like this built for themselves. I'll show you some of the meals. So we handle all of these meals. We install them based on what the data is saying. And then all this is clearly lowering the biological age, but also adding time back in your pocket, because ultimately what's going to add the most time back in your pocket is de-stressing. And de-stressing and not cooking or cleaning is a big part of that. And that's how people see a lot of success. And our team handles shopping, cooking, cleaning, dropping clothes off, organizing, reporting, quality, and all of that good jazz. And ultimately what we do and what we found to lower biological age the most is this approach, which is a full suite approach. So testing your body from head to toe, having a team that manages and sets up all of that testing for you, having a doctor and a geneticist overview it and make sure that you're in the know of what's going on, having all meals, training, and mobility seamlessly programmed based on that data, taking supplements that match what the data's coming in from the full suite of testing, having an equipment ordered over and sent over that is being used, helping out the wife and the kids in the house with foods as well, having an RMT go into the home and do an assessment to see what parts of the body are weak, etc., and then also monitoring sleep and analyzing how the restoration cycle is going, with obviously all this being under our proprietary software that consolidates and gathers all this information in a safe and effective way.